All right. So we got announcements. Announcements are fun. We got the guest Bible class teacher. That's going to be at the end of the month on May 25th. Steve Gober from World Bible School is going to be here. He's not going to be preaching, so if you want to hear him, you got to be here for Bible class at 9:30, and it'll be in here. And he always does. They always do a good job. World Bible School does. So I know it's going to be a good program to be part of and to be connected to. Plenty of volunteer opportunities. So as far as communion cleanup goes, that kind of thing. So and teaching, we appreciate that. Central Florida Bible Camp's coming up. We both have. I know the Strassers are looking for people to be working as a counselor for K through 5th grade camp. And there's information in here how you can go about doing that. It's a really big thing, and they work so hard to make that happen. We also are connected to another week of camp, which is Teen Week, and Griffin, of course, is the co-director of that. So if you want to help with that, go see him. And actually, the same information here that Drew put in here can also be used to get connected to if you're wanting to be part of that and help with that. Then also there's items that are requested for Barracks of Hope. Cindy Webster said they are basically they're still needing beds. So there's information in here about that. If you have questions, you can go see her about that. And then pack the pantry. We're always looking for people to be to bring in items and we definitely need certain things. I typically, it's not just me, there's several of us, but I'm one of the people that ends up being the line of response. And so I've gotten to know over the years those who are homeless, what makes them go, all right, to where they go, oh man. And so I put in a lot of the all right things in there. And so that's what's in there. But of course, we're grateful to Nada for volunteering to lead this ministry as well. All right, so that's all the announcements. I try not to spend too much time on them, and so we can move on to the Bible class. And I'm also going to try to be more mindful of the kids. I keep forgetting the person that teaches the least amount of time is me. The teachers downstairs teach the entire time, and so I try to be mindful. I need to be more mindful of that. No one has complained. It just at some point I just started thinking, yeah, I need to be thoughtful. So they've been great. No complaints been given to me. So all right. So we've been looking at Judges. Last week we looked at just one of the worst situations you can imagine as far as spirituality when it comes to biblical stories. Rough situation at the end of Judges. We made it through it. We're okay. But those people that we read about were not. They had a tough time. And now it brings us to 1 Samuel chapter 1. And what's important to know is some of this overlaps. So some of that stuff we were talking about last week with just the nonsense and just how bad things have gotten. Well, some of that is overlapping into the time that Eli is judge. Even into some of the time that Samuel is judge. And so these guys had a difficult job before them. There's no doubt about it. And so we're going to try to cover 4 chapters and look at the life of Eli and also look at the introduction to Samuel. And then next week we're just going to look at Samuel and that will be the final judge. So that means the only judge we really never really looked at in this whole series is the first one in Joshua. So we'll try to cover him at some point. But so we're going to look at Eli, who was the second to the last judge. We're going to look at Samuel, who was the last judge. And so based on the last 5 chapters of Judges, Israel had gone down a bad path. We know that. And it's an understatement to say bad path. It was rough. Now, when we get to 1 Samuel, Eli is referred to as a judge in chapter 4, verse 18. We're not really sure he's a judge until we get to the end of his life, and it says he was a judge for 40 years. And he died at 98, so that means he started his work as judge at 58. So that's one thing we know about Eli. Uh, and we'll get to that scripture in a moment. We have to look at some earlier things in his life first. Eli was not just a judge, he was also a priest of Israel. So he was both a spiritual and civic leader during that period. His role would have been similar to a lot of other judges that we see in the book of Judges. And then also, when we get to 1 Samuel, what's interesting is it's not written the same way that the book of Judges is written. Samuel is written with the idea of like, this is a time of transition from judges to kings. And so we're going to be moving from judges to kings when you get into 1 Samuel. And so this is the transition period. And let's see what else we have in our introduction. We're going to look at the first of his life and see maybe there's some redemption, because there's definitely some downsides to his life. He definitely had struggles in his life. So Eli, again, was both a priest and judge over Israel. We see in 1 Samuel chapter 1 and verse 9 that, in fact, there it is, that he worked out of Shiloh, and that's where he was sitting in his chair. And chair is one of the things that gets lost in translation. It really is, this is the chair, like the throne almost. Not that he was king, but like the judge's chair. Okay, so the judge's seat. And so it's a little bit more than just he had a chair. But back then, how many people had chairs? Probably not very many. One of the most interesting things that was a side thing that wasn't even biblical, but fascinating in the movie The Passion. Remember when they had Jesus and he was making a chair for a rich man, and his mom says, "What in the world is that?" And he goes, "It's a chair. It's so he could sit up high." And she goes, why would someone need that? And they're just laughing about the nonsense of it, just silly. Well, we know that Eli has a chair that is up, and it gives him a little bit of a status. And so that's sort of an important thing. Jesus, we get the idea that he probably would sit on rocks as he would teach at the Sea of Galilee. If you remember Matthew chapter 5, it says he sat, and then he opened his mouth and spoke. Which, why do we have all that extra information? It's done that way because they want us to know that's what people of authority, that's how they're described. People in authority will sit, and people will come before them wherever they're sitting. They will open their mouth and speak, and you better keep your mouth shut while they are listening, while they give their judgment. Unless they ask you to talk, which there'll probably be a time for that as well. And so there's that. The tabernacle is in Shiloh, which is important because that's where the Ark of the Covenant is as well. And so we see here that Eli is the holy man of the country at this point. He is the spiritual leader, and the political leader of, and really the administrator of justice as well. He's all wrapped into one. And so that's what he's doing. And of course, we know, because we read last week, what's going on in his country. It's a country in decline. It's falling apart everywhere around him. It's a bad situation. And so we get into chapter 1, and the most interesting thing is we don't look at Eli. Immediately, the first person we look at and read about is a woman named Hannah. We're not going to read chapter 1, unfortunately. We will read some in chapter 2. So if you're interested in this story, and you should be, read chapter 1, especially the commitment that Hannah makes. She's childless. In fact, we'll start the story as this. There's a man named Elkanah. He has 2 wives, Hannah and Peninnah. And Hannah's barren, and the other one, Peninnah, has children, and she mocks Hannah regularly. And it's very cruel what's going on. And that's the first 6 verses of 1 Samuel chapter 1. Every year, Elkanah's family goes to Shiloh to worship and sacrifice at the tabernacle. And we see that in verses 3 through 7 of chapter 1. Is in Eli the priest, he saw her praying silently, and she's so passionate in her prayer that he accuses her of being drunk. And then she has to explain that, no, I'm not drunk. I am just very committed to what my request to the Lord. I have a massive request, and it's huge to me, and I'm passionate about it. Now, Eli then kind of blesses her on that once he realizes that she's not drunk, that she's very sincere. And so the request, God remembered Hannah and gives birth to Samuel because she basically is asking God for a son, vowing that if God gives her the son, she will dedicate him to the Lord. And we see that in verses 10 and 11 of chapter 1. So Hannah says, I don't have children, but Lord, if you give me one, I'll give him back to you. And so that's the message there. And then, of course, moving on a little bit further, God remembers Hannah, remembers the commitment that she's made, and he has blessed her with a son, and she gives birth to him. She names him Samuel, and she names him that because I requested him from the Lord. And after he's weaned, we see in verses 24 through 28 that she will bring this child, Samuel, to Eli at Shiloh and dedicate him to the service of the Lord forever. And so that's chapter 1. And so really chapter 1 is not about Eli, other than the fact that he notices a woman who is appearing to be drunk, but she's not. She's just praying passionately. And which makes me ask a question, because I do know a little bit about Jewish culture. And I don't know if ancient Jewish culture was like this, but when you start studying the Psalms, you know that the Psalms are done in a rhythm. And there is a rhythm to the way that they chant, the way they pray in that Jewish culture. And so there's going to be a movement. It's going to have passion to it. It's going to have rhythm to it. And it's nothing like the way we do it. And in fact, they're even told where to breathe and everything. Yeah, it's very, very passionate, which makes me ask the question: why is Eli confusing someone's prayer with drunkenness? Unless maybe he's just not used to seeing people pray anymore or pray passionately. So that could be the case. Yes.
But no sound was coming.
Yeah. Which, by the way, that's again, even to the modern day, if you go to the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, that's what you'll see. You'll see a lot of lips moving. You won't hear a lot of voices, though. Interesting. And so I think that I kind of almost wonder if he's just not used to seeing a lot of people pray anymore. And you kind of wonder how healthy is his status as a religious leader? Yes.
More of a cursory prayer. Mm-hmm. This is really fervent. She's poured her heart out.
Yeah.
He probably hasn't seen that very often, if at all.
Yeah, which again, remember what we saw last week, what Israel was. And what a mess. Yes.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a spoiler, but I mean, look at his own kids.
Oh yeah, that's okay. They do spoil the story, so you can bring it up.
So his kids are not exactly paragons of priesthood either. So it's a good indication that we're seeing, as we often see with Israel, that the whole thing is corrupt as is anyway. So he may not be used, as you said, may not be used to seeing people pray.
Yes, no, that it is. It's a very sad situation, but God is working. So this is not a sad. It's a sad state, but the situation is kind of beautiful in what God is doing here. And so Hannah receives a child, and she's going to dedicate this child now back to the Lord, which she does. She keeps her promise, and then we get chapter 2, verses 1 through 11, and Hannah's prayer is interesting, but if you look at it in detail, and if we were doing a Samuel study, like the whole book of 1 Samuel, then we could almost look at it as, oh, wait, this is like a prologue of some sort to the whole book. This works almost like it kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what to expect, what's going on here. Because what's going to happen is it's going to start out with what's happening, and she's rejoicing, but it's going to end with her talking about kings, which is interesting because there were no kings in her time. So this is a prophecy of some kind. This is prophetic. But then there is, in fact, I'll read the last 3 verses of this prayer. Verse 9, he watches over his holy ones, but the wicked are made speechless in the darkness, for it is not by one's own strength that one prevails. The Lord shatters his adversaries, he thunders against them from the heavens. The Lord executes judgment to the ends of the earth. He will strengthen his king and exalt the power of his anointed one. Now, what's fascinating about this is prophetic, Holy Spirit driven. More than likely, she may be thinking earthly king, but who kind of, and this is kind of a multi-layered thing, but who is the ultimate king here being described here? We're talking about Jesus. Isn't that wild? That's the beauty. And so there is, and usually what we call those is a kind of a multi-layered prophecy, where is like, okay, there will be a David, God will use David, but then we're talking about a king beyond that. And I could be wrong on that, but typically that's what a lot of these prophecies are like. They're usually multi-layered. And so that's kind of what's going on here. But it does work as a good prologue to the whole book, and kind of gives us kind of an indication of what's going on, what's happening in the whole book of 1 Samuel. Any thoughts before we look at Eli's messed up life? Okay. Chapter 11, Elkanah went back home to Ramah. The boy Samuel was serving the Lord with the favor of Eli. This is verse 11 of chapter 2, by the way. The favor of Eli, the priest. But the sons of Eli were wicked men. They did not acknowledge the Lord's authority. This was the priest's routine with the people. Whenever anyone was making a sacrifice, the priest attendant would come with a 3-pronged fork in his hand. Just as the meat was boiling, he would jab it into the basin, kettle, cauldron, or pot. Everything that the fork would bring up, the priest would take for himself. This is how they would use to treat all the Israelites who came there to Shiloh. Also, they burned the fat. The priest attendant would come and say to the person who was making the sacrifice, "Give some meat for the priest to roast. He won't accept boiled meat from you, but only raw." If the individual said to him, "They should certainly burn the fat away first, then take for yourself whatever you wish," then he would say, "No, give it now. If not, I'll take it by force." The sin of these young men was very great in the Lord's sight, for they treated the Lord's offering with contempt. Verse 18, now Samuel was ministering with the favor of the Lord. The boy was dressed in a linen ephod, so he looks like a priest already, or at least like a religious person. Verse 19, his mother used to make him a small robe and bring it to him from time to time when she would go up with her husband to make the annual sacrifice. Eli would bless Elkanah and his wife, saying, "May the Lord establish descendants for you from this woman in place of the one she dedicated to the Lord." Then they would go to their home. And indeed, the Lord attended to Hannah. She got pregnant and gave birth to 3 sons and 2 daughters, but the boy Eli grew up before the Lord. Eli was very old, and he would hear about everything that his sons used to do to all the people of Israel, and how they used to go to bed with the women who were stationed at the entrance to the tent of meeting. He said to them, "Why do you do these things? These evil things I hear about from all these people. No, my sons, for the report that I hear circulating among the Lord's people is not good. If a man sins against a man, one may appeal to God on his behalf. But if a man sins against the Lord, who can intercede for him?" That's an interesting question. But Eli's sons would not listen to their father, Indeed, the Lord had decided to kill them. Yeah, that's not good. However, the boy Samuel was growing up and finding favor both with the Lord and with people. Samuel must have been pretty interesting. I mean, even as a young man, he stands out. He stands out probably because he's just a light in a dark world. And he's godly, he's committed, he lives a life very similar to what his mom committed him to being, a life dedicated to the Lord. And so that's Samuel. And who is he being raised by? This is interesting. He's being raised by who? Eli. Which is wild because how good a job did he do with the first two? And I get it. People make he raised them and they have to make their own decisions, right? And he's clearly did not, I don't think he raised them to be this. I am almost certain of that. But they are misusing the power that their father has. Remember how we saw that there were sons that immediately had power because of their father being a judge in the book of Judges? Well, we kind of see that going on here as priests. They have power, and now these women, they're basically using their power to do whatever they want with these women, and they are, and again, I don't know how, it makes me kind of wonder just how ungodly was these religious proceedings being. Was any of this godly? Was any of this pleasing to God? Or was this just a godly, religious event or experience that was really just pagan? And so there was just a lot of evil going on here. So Eli's sons, they're Hophni and Phinehas. They're wicked priests. They're stealing sacrifices, as we just saw there. They're seducing women at the tabernacle, as we just saw. Eli will confront them. God is not pleased. A man of God came to Eli, and that's in verses 27 through 36. And we don't know the man of God's name. He just says, your priestly line is coming to an end. It's coming to an end. Your two sons are going to die on the same day. In contrast, Samuel's going to continue to grow in favor of the Lord. And we see all that happening. And so, and that is now all the way to the end of chapter 2. And any thoughts on chapter 2 for you? Yeah.
Eli's got those two sons. They did not end up well. But then his son Samuel ends up pretty good. And you were asking, why? And I'm kind of thinking, well, the mother, the mother of the two. Now she has sons, but she's mocking Hannah. Now all of a sudden Hannah has one, dedicates it to the Lord, and it's interesting that to make a long story short, I think it's Hannah. It's the mothers. You could have preached on this on Sunday morning, but you've got the same father, but you've got two mothers.
Yeah, I think that she's not there all the time. It says that she comes in time to time when she can, but yeah, there's definitely a commitment that you see that the mother has made. This child is going to be dedicated to the Lord. And my guess is that every day as he was as an infant, as he's being prepared to be given over to Eli, he is being told in a very positive way, you're committed to the Lord. You belong to the Lord. You're going to be part of his mighty plan. And that can really have a very positive impact on a child. And so I think that that's probably something you're seeing going on here for sure. That comes from his mom. However, I'm also going to say, as we get older, we learn from our mistakes. Eli probably is a better spiritual just helper, guardian, a spiritual father now than he was as a younger man. And so I think you put both of those together, I think, because God wanted Samuel to be in the presence and the mentorship of Eli. So I do think that Eli may have learned something. I know I'm still learning, hopefully.
Divine intervention there.
Yeah. Well, divine intervention in how?
Keeping Samuel on the straight and narrow.
Well, it's not going to be forced into it. God, there's no forced, what do we call it?
Forced.
No hostages.
Little nudge.
Yeah, I think there's nudges. Yeah, there's definitely nudges for sure, and people are going to be encouraged. And I do think this. You know how where it'll say in Scripture, God hardened so and so's heart, like Pharaoh's heart, and He'll do that with others. Like someone will make a decision that's probably not the best decision, and God will say, like with Samson, no, I'm going to give him this, and I'm going to use it. It's not going to make him happy, but I'm going to use this for my will, for my purpose. He does that with Pharaoh. He does that with others. I think when someone prays a prayer of commitment, and so if someone's very self-centered and self-focused, God will respect our decisions even if He doesn't like it and give us over to those things. But in the same way, when someone is living a life where they're committing, focused, determined, or maybe the mother's determined and focused, I think God will bless that as well. And so He'll go, yeah, if you want to be a person with a clean heart, a pure heart, I will put things in your life that will help you have a pure heart, a committed heart. Yes?
The impression Samuel could be like Samson, in that, she prayed, he will not have his hair cut. And then evidently in the Dead Sea Scrolls, there's references to him being a Nazarite.
Oh, Samuel? Well, and there you go. So there is a little bit of a similarity, and I did think of the similarity between them as I was putting this together. It is fascinating because both of them, their mother is a big part of the spiritual journey, and so you're absolutely right. And don't ignore Elkanah's role in this. He's a man committed to his wife's commitment to the Lord, and so he has a part in this as well. Just like Samson's father was very much a part of the spiritual development of Samson. But Samuel is fascinating because he never really seems to let power go to his head, which a lot of leaders do. In fact, Samuel reminds me a lot of like what Deborah was, someone who's just really wise and very spiritual and moves things not through with a sword as much, but he does. I mean, Samuel will be involved in some military conflicts, but yeah, it is interesting. There's a similarity. All right, chapter 3, and I'm going to go ahead and read chapter 3 because, well, it's good, and it's a powerful little story. Verse 1, now the boy Samuel continued serving the Lord under Eli's supervision. Receiving a message from the Lord was rare in those days. Revelatory visions were infrequent. Why was God not speaking? Because they weren't listening, right? Yeah. What's the point of speaking if people aren't going to listen? And so there's that. Verse 2, Eli's eyes had begun to fail, so he was unable to see well. At that time he was lying down in his place, and the lamp of God had not been extinguished. Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord as well. The ark of the God was also there. The Lord called to Samuel and Samuel replied, "Here I am." Then he ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called me." But Eli said, "I didn't call you. Go back and lie down." So he went back and to lay down. The Lord again called Samuel. So Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called me." But Eli said, "I didn't call you. Go back and lie down." But Samuel did not know the Lord, not in that way, not in the way that he's about to know him. The Lord's messages had not been revealed to him. Then the Lord called Samuel a third time. So he got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called me." Eli then realized it was the Lord who was calling the boy. So Eli said to Samuel, and again, give Eli credit here, okay? Give Eli credit here. Eli said to Samuel, "Go back and lie down. And when he calls you, say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" So Samuel went back to lie down in his place. I find that to be profound. I don't know about you, but I'm moved by that. I think that's an amazing thing that's happens right there. Eli does recognize, wait a minute, this kid is not just pestering me. There's something going on here, and I'm going to teach him. I'm going to teach him how to respond to the Lord. I'm teaching him how to be a leader that God will use next. I think that's pretty awesome. And so, again, let's not ignore Eli's part in this story. God is using him to teach him how to respond to God as a prophet, as a priest, as a leader in this world where, again, people are not used to it. They're not used to God giving messages. So this is a big deal. I'll stop right there. I saw a hand. Yes.
Down. Is he laying down to pray like David did?
I think he was trying to sleep.
What?
I think he was trying to sleep. He could have been praying. I think he was just snap time, kid.
That or he was keeping the lantern
He
going.
was in the temple.
Yeah, maybe he had
The
responsibilities.
lantern had never been extinguished, so
Yeah, he's got some responsibilities,
yeah.
and he's got to make sure he doesn't get too close to the Ark of the Covenant.
Mm-hmm.
So, that kid is in a perilous situation, and he seems to handle it just fine. Did I see that over again? Okay. But yeah, it's interesting right here going on. What's happening here? All right, so let's see, verse 10. The Lord came and stood nearby, calling as he had previously done, "Samuel, Samuel." Samuel replied, "Speak, for your servant is listening." The Lord said to Samuel, "Look, I'm about to do something in Israel." Again, awesome. I'm about to do something in Israel. That's either going to be really scary or really awesome. And this one's going to be scary. Yes.
Line of verse 10.
Yes.
Himself came and stood
Right.
nearby.
Right.
It sounds like, remember when the three, we say angels, came to Abraham?
Mm-hmm.
Goes back and forth between God or the Lord, the four-letter name, okay,
Right.
and an angel. Same with the burning bush.
Right.
It's a messenger. It's also God.
This is a little bit one of those I am moments, right?
It certainly is.
Yeah. And this is and so, all right, so now let's have a theological philosophy moment. Okay, so I think there's a lot more to what the Godhead is as far as Father, Son, Holy Spirit. But I think it's written down as simple as it can be for these small brains that we have. But I see it as the Father being the essence of all that God is. The Holy Spirit's the part of God that exists within us. And Jesus is the part of God. The Son is the part of God that makes things happen. And we see in the book of John, John chapter 1, that is, early, that he's the part of God that kind of made stuff, that makes stuff. And so it does make you wonder, like, okay, are we talking about an angel working in the name of the Lord here, or is this Old Testament version of Jesus in response doing stuff? Well, you can't really just say no, because if you look at how he's described in other parts of the Old Testament, I'm not saying he is in the form of Jesus, but there is still, because it does say he was active in it, but different. And so this is a very unique description of God and how he is he is basically putting himself out there, and he is engaging another person. He's engaging a person. He's about to make something happen in Israel. He actually says that. That's his words. I'm about to do something. And remember, Jesus is the part of God that makes things happen. And so when people think of Jesus, they think, oh, well, he's the part of God that would be easy to, you don't want to, you don't have to be afraid of him. Well, if he's the part of God that makes things happen, then he's the part of the God, he's the judge. You don't mess with Jesus. If you look at Revelation, you don't mess with Jesus. If he is the arm of God, then you don't mess with him. And so, I don't know, this is philosophical, weird thing I just stopped and did. I apologize.
The Old Testament, that there was a deity, I don't know, I'm not going to explain this right, that was kind of like you said, Jesus, another deity that, I'm not explaining it right, but there are scholars that believe there's some kind of God that is special in our eyes, as at that time frame.
A manifestation.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see how these people approach God. If anything, that's the thing that's so fascinating here is it says Samuel's not really prepared for this, so Eli's having to teach him, hey, that's God speaking to you. This is how you answer him. This is how you prepare yourself to listen to him and then obey him. And so there's that. And so people don't really know exactly, like I said, what to do, especially in this time period, because connection with God is so infrequent. And a lot of that's because the people have just been evil. Yeah. And that could be easily what this is. Right. And so it is it's an interesting thing, but we're definitely, what we can say for sure is the voice that they're hearing, the words they're hearing, is God's. It is. I saw a hand. Yes.
That he hadn't been speaking to him. God just hasn't been speaking to him too much. Of course, with the people being evil as they were, there wasn't a whole bunch to say to them. But that's why I think it took 3 times for him to realize, oh, he's not speaking to me, but he's trying to speak to Samuel. And so I need to encourage Samuel on this. But you're just getting ready to read.
Yeah.
He was real quick to say, okay, what did he say? He wants to know because he hasn't been spoken to, and he knows Samuel has been spoken to.
Yeah, and that's a big deal. I mean, because if you're supposed to be the spiritual leader, the judge that's leading the people, and you haven't had many messages with God other than the last one before this one was a messenger, a man of God came to him and said, hey, you're done for. And so the last message I got wasn't very good. It wasn't very positive for me anyway. All right, so the Lord came and stood by, calling him, and he said, I'm about to do something in Israel, and when anyone hears about it, both of the ears will tingle. On that day I will carry out against Eli everything I spoke about his house from the start to finish. You should tell him that I'm about to judge his house forever because of the sin that he knew about, for his sons were cursing God, and he did not rebuke them. Therefore I swore an oath to the house of Eli. The sin of the house of Eli can never be forgiven by sacrifice or by grain offering. See, here's the thing. The father is like, well, you shouldn't be doing that, guys. He's the guy in charge. Guess who he can fire? He can literally fire them. He can probably have them thrown into a fire. And so, yeah, this is, and that's the problem. did not take a stand. The judge of Israel, the leader of Israel, supposed to take a stand. Don't we see that even in the book of Ephesians? God's people are supposed to make a stand against evil. And here, your leader, your spiritual leader, cannot make a stand in his household.
Leader of the family. I mean, that's the job he was supposed to be doing. And he slacked off on it, that's for sure.
Yeah. So he had a job for all of Israel, but he also had a job for his home. And in both situations, yes.
Being that Samuel is a child.
He is a child, that's right.
And that he follows around Eli because Eli is the father figure.
Absolutely.
And it says he ministered with him.
Absolutely. No, he's learned a tremendous amount from Eli. No.
Children his age.
No, Eli has grown up fast. He had to grow up fast. No doubt. Thank you for sharing that. All right, so see the Eli. Verse 15. So Samuel lay down until morning when he opened the doors, the house of the Lord. But Samuel then he opened the doors to the house of the Lord, or the Lord's house. But Samuel was afraid to tell Eli about the vision. However, Eli called Samuel and said, "Samuel, my son." He replied, "Here I am." Eli said, "What message did he speak to you? Don't conceal it from me. God will judge you severely if you conceal from me anything that he said to you." I think Eli, I know there's a threat there, but there's also some affection there at the beginning of it. I think Eli is basically saying, do not be afraid of me. Be afraid of God. You're gonna have to do this is the job. You're about to take the job over, and you can't be afraid of me or people. You need to be, if you're going to fear something, you need to fear God. Which, again, if you're going to be the leader, if you're going to take stands, that this is incredible advice being given from Eli. And I think, so it does seem like, man, it's a threat. I don't think it's really meant to be a threat. I think it's really meant to be, I think it's sincere. I think it is the best advice someone could ever give. Verse 18, Samuel told him everything. He did not hold back anything from Eli. Eli said, "The Lord will do what he pleases." The Lord's will be done. Samuel continued to grow. The Lord was with him. None of his prophecies fell to the ground unfulfilled. Whew. Now we're starting to see a resurgence, a transformation of things happening. We have a prophet. We have a judge. We have a leader. We have a man of God that God is working through. This is a hero, is what we're seeing here. Verse 20, all Israel from Dan to Beersheba realized that Samuel was confirmed as a prophet of the Lord. Then the Lord again appeared in Shiloh, for it was in Shiloh that the Lord had revealed himself to Samuel through a message from the Lord. Samuel revealed the word of the Lord to all Israel. So now he's preaching. He's not just prophesying. He's whatever God wants him to say, he's saying it. He is a preacher now. He is preaching truth. And they need to hear truth because there's a lot of people, they seem to be living as if there's no truth. And now things are about to fall apart, and we're going to get to it real quick. Chapter 4, verse 1, then the Israelites went out to fight the Philistines. They camped at Ebenezer, and the Philistines camped at Ephek. The Philistines arranged their forces to fight Israel. As the battle spread out, Israel was defeated by the Philistines, who killed about 4,000 men in the battle line in the field. So that's the first battle. Verse 3, we now have the counteroffensive. Then when the army came back to camp, the elders of Israel said, "Why did the Lord let us be defeated today by the Philistines? Let's take with us the ark of the covenant of the Lord from Shiloh. When it is with us, it will save us from the hand of our enemies." What are they saying wrong there in that sentence in verse 3? When it is with us. When he is with us. Not when it's with us. Now we're turning the Ark of the Covenant into what? Yeah, there you go. Man. So verse 4. So the army sent to Shiloh. They took from the Ark. They took from there the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord of heaven's armies, who sits between the cherubim. Now the sons of Eli, Hophni, and Phinehas were there with the ark of the covenant of God. What were they thinking? When the ark of the covenant of the Lord arrived at the camp, all of Israel shouted so loudly that the ground shook. Are these guys atheists? I mean, I know they're priests, but are they atheists? Because they live as if there's no God. Yes.
Sit between the cherubim.
Right.
And if they really believe that, yeah, he's really there, by carrying that ark to the battlefield, they're bringing God himself.
So maybe they're not atheists, maybe they're just delusional. There's something wrong there. Yeah. Well, like who's in charge of who? Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Because Dagon helps out the Philistines, right? That's the, yeah. Well, yeah. So they believe that anyway. I don't think he's really helped them out, and we're going to see that he's not working too well for them. But yeah, you're right. They're adjusting. Like what? How did the Philistines behave? How did the Canaanites behave? Well, this is what the Canaanites would do. So, good point. All right. Any other hands? Yes.
Any lamp.
Yeah. We don't want to do that with prayer, do we? Because we can sometimes do that with prayer if we're not careful. Like, yes, we're going to take the ark with us, which you're not supposed to do that with the ark. Yes.
It's hard to read the Old Testament from a Christian point of view.
Right.
We lose a lot when you do that. It's really hard to get all the Christian concepts out of our brain and go back to where they were and what they were going through and what they believed and how they believed it. They all didn't have a Bible like we did either.
Yeah. Yeah. Ancient Near Eastern culture is where they're in. But they were supposed to have remember, there was like literally, we want our fathers to talk to their children as they go and tell them about the Lord, tell them about the law of God, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, love your neighbor, the 10 Commandments. This was the responsibility of every Israelite. It was supposed to be on their foreheads, on their doorposts, everywhere. And so you're right. But but again, if you're not doing that, if you're not obeying God, then it leads to just further disaster, and that's we're seeing a cycle of disaster here. All right, so moving on, but good point. So here comes the counteroffensive. Okay, it didn't work out with our 4,000 men. Now we have the Ark of the Covenant, and we have a whole lot more. We're going to do this. And so verse 10. Philistines fought. Israel was defeated. They all ran home. The slaughter was very great. 30,000 foot soldiers from Israel fell in battle. The ark of God was taken, and the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni, and Phinehas were killed. On that day, a Benjamite ran. Boy, Benjamites never get a good part of the story. He gets to be the guy telling the bad news. Here comes a Benjamite. It's not going to be good, whatever it is. So a Benjamite ran from the battle lines and came to Shiloh. His clothes were torn, and dirt was on his head. When he arrived at Shiloh, Eli was sitting in his chair on the lookout by the side of the road, for he was very worried about the ark of God. As the man entered the city to give his report, the whole city cried out, "Why is he worried?" Isn't that interesting? I don't. Yeah. And they took the family car out. Yeah, they took the Ark of the Covenant out as if it was the genie lamp, right? He knows they're not doing any of this correctly. And he goes, my sinful sons are going to they're going to mess everything up. We're going to lose the Ark of the Covenant because of just how off they are. And I'm sure it's weighing heavy on him. And so, let's see, where we go? Okay, verse 16, the man said to Eli, I'm the one who came from battle lines. Just today I fled from the battle lines. Eli asked, how did things go, my son? The messenger replied, Israel has fled from the Philistines. The army has suffered a great defeat. Your 2 sons, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead. The Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of God, has been captured. When he mentioned the Ark of God, Eli fell backward from his chair beside the gate. He broke his neck and died, for he was old and heavy. He judged Israel for 40 years. Verse 19, his daughter-in-law, the wife of Phinehas, was pregnant and close to giving birth. When she heard that the Ark of God was captured and that her father-in-law and her husband were dead, she doubled over and gave birth, but her labor pains were too much for her. As she was dying, the women who were with her said, don't be afraid, you have given birth to a son. But she did not reply or pay any attention. She named the boy Ichabod, saying, the glory has departed from Israel, referring to the capture of the Ark of God and the deaths of her father-in-law and her husband. She said, the glory has departed from Israel because the Ark of God has been captured. And so Eli does not have a great story. It's a very sad story. But his blessing, he does have one amazing legacy in that he is the mentor for an amazing person in Samuel. And God gave him that responsibility. And so that is the beautiful outlier in this. Of course, you have the amazing story, of course, of how Samuel comes about early on with Hannah. But as Samuel takes over and he's going to now become judge, Eli now has just died. The Ark of the Covenant is in the hands of the Philistines. The army is in shambles. Some of our best fighting men have died in battle today. This place is spiritually on fire, not on fire, a dumpster fire, maybe. That's a better way to say it. It's just fallen apart. It's not working out. And that is what the young man Samuel becomes judge over and prophet over and priest over. Yes?
Take the ark into battle. I wonder if they carried it on the poles like they were supposed to. I didn't say. But then I'm fascinated by the idea of what did the Philistines do? They just run up and grab it and haul it off, or
pretty much.
Did they treat it with special reverence, or carry it with the poles, or we see just in a little bit here.
I bet you the second guys did.
It's going to be interesting what takes place in this chapter.
And I don't want to ruin. We were going to focus on it, but we slowed down, and that was part of my problem, my fault there on that one. So we'll focus on this one. We have 2 more weeks to do this, so we're going to try to do it right. But yeah, we'll talk about the return of the ark, and it's a really fascinating story because this is a situation where God says, I'm not going to let anybody rescue me. I'm going to do this all on my own. And it's kind of wild, and we're going to give it its due next week. All right, any final things? All right, let's pray. Father, thank you for this time we can be together. Thank you for the opportunity to look at the life of Eli. Father, thank you for the ministries that he was involved in. Father, help us to learn from his life. We know that his sons made terrible decisions, and he was saddened by those decisions, Father. Help us to take stands against evil, a stand for what's true, to honor you in every moment, Father. Thank you for the amazing young man in Samuel as well, and help us to really learn from him as we start reading about his life this week and next week. Father, thank you for your son Jesus. In his name we pray. Amen.